The shopping bags hit the polished marble floor of Santon City Mall with a hollow thud that echoed through Amara's darkness. "Chitty!" she called out, her fingers instinctively reaching for the familiar warmth of her husband's arm. Nothing. Only the rush of strangers passing by, their footsteps a chaotic symphony around her. "Chitty, please, this isn't funny. What would you do if you walked in on this? Hit like if you've been betrayed, and comment below where you're watching from." Her white cane trembled in her right hand as panic crawled up her spine like ice. 3 years of marriage, and she knew every sound her husband made, the particular shuffle of his expensive loafers, the slight wheeze in his breath when he walked too fast, the way he cleared his throat before speaking. But now, standing in the middle of Johannesburg's busiest shopping center on a Saturday afternoon, all she heard were strangers. "Ma'am, are you all right?" A security guard's voice cut through her rising fear. "My husband," Amara's voice cracked, her Nigerian accent thickening with emotion. "He was just here. We were shopping together. I need to find him." The guard's radio crackled. "Can you describe him?" Before Amara could answer, her phone buzzed in her purse. With shaking hands, she pulled it out, her thumb finding the voice assistant button through muscle memory. "One new message from Chitty," the automated voice announced. Her heart leaped. Thank God. He probably just went to get the car. "Read message," she commanded. The phone's cold, mechanical voice delivered words that shattered her world. "I can't do this anymore, Amara. Taking care of a blind woman wasn't what I signed up for. My lawyer will contact you about the divorce. Don't try to find me. I've met someone else, someone who can actually see the life I'm trying to build. Your sister Zainab knows where you are. She'll come get you. Goodbye." The phone slipped from Amara's fingers, clattering against the marble. Around her, the mall sounds became muffled, distant, as if she'd been submerged underwater. Her knees buckled, and she grabbed onto a nearby railing, her carefully constructed world crumbling in 67 words. This couldn't be real. This morning, Chitty had kissed her forehead, called her "my love," helped her pick out a dress for his company's gala next week. They'd laughed in the car on the way here, singing along to "Burna Boy" on the radio. He'd guided her hand to the perfume testers, described the colors of scarves, promised her they'd stop for her favorite suya on the way home. "Ma'am, please, let me help you to a seat." The security guard's hand touched her elbow gently. Amara jerked away, her pride refusing his pity. "I'm fine. My sister is coming." But she wasn't fine. At 28 years old, Amara Okonkwo had lost her sight in a car accident on Lagos-Ibadan Expressway 3 years ago, the same accident that had killed her parents. Chitty had been her boyfriend then, had stood by her through the surgeries, the rehabilitation, had married her when everyone else looked at her with pity. He'd been her eyes, her anchor, her proof that she was still worthy of love despite her disability. And now he'd left her. In a shopping mall. Like discarded trash. Amara. Her younger sister Zainab's voice cut through the fog. Footsteps rushed toward her. "Oh my God, Amara, I'm so sorry. I just got Chitty's message. I came as fast as I could." "You knew." Amara's voice came out flat, dead. "He told you he was going to do this?" Zainab's silence was answer enough. "How long?" Amara demanded, her fingers tightening around her cane until her knuckles ached. "How long has he been planning to abandon me like this?" "I don't know, sis. I swear. He only messaged me 20 minutes ago, told me to come get you." "Who is she?" The question ripped from Amara's throat. "Who is this woman who can see?" Zainab's hesitation lasted too long. "Her name is Chioma. She's his secretary. I saw them together last month at a restaurant, but I hoped I was wrong." Betrayal layered upon betrayal. Her husband and his secretary. It was so cliché it would be laughable if it wasn't destroying her. And her sister had known, had seen them together, and said nothing. "Take me home," Amara whispered. "Please, just take me home." As Zainab guided her toward the exit, Amara's cane caught on something, someone's foot. She stumbled, would have fallen if strong hands hadn't caught her shoulders, steadying her with a grip that was firm but surprisingly gentle. "Easy there," a deep voice said, tinged with a British accent overlay on Yoruba roots. Are you hurt? I'm fine, Amara said automatically, trying to pull away, but the stranger's hands remained on her arms. You're crying, the man observed quietly. And your hands are shaking. That's not fine. Something in his voice, a warmth, a genuine concern that she hadn't heard from anyone in so long, broke through her defenses. A sob escaped before she could stop it. I'll handle this, Zainab said quickly, possessively taking Amara's arm. Thank you for your help. Wait, the stranger said, and Amara heard the rustle of fabric, felt something pressed into her hand. A business card. If you need anything, legal help, a safe place, anything, call that number. My name is Kola Adeyemi. Before Amara could respond, Zainab was pulling her away, her sister's grip almost painful in its urgency. Who was that? Amara asked as they walked. Nobody important, Zainab replied too quickly. Just some man. Forget about him. Let's get you home. But as they drove through Johannesburg streets, Amara's fingers traced the embossed letters on the business card, feeling the quality of the paper, the raised print that spoke of money and power. Her phone's reader would tell her what it said later, when she was alone. She didn't know it yet, but Kola Adeyemi wasn't nobody. He was the heir to the Adeyemi Group, one of West Africa's largest conglomerates, worth an estimated $2.3 billion. And their collision in the mall wasn't an accident. He'd watched the entire scene unfold, had seen a man abandon his blind wife like garbage, and something in him had shifted. Chidi Okonkwo had made the biggest mistake of his life. And Amara's story was just beginning. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more gripping stories like this. What do you think Amara should do next? Comment below and let us know where you're watching from. Should she call that number? Drop your thoughts. The apartment felt different now. Hostile, like the walls themselves were witnesses to her humiliation. Amara sat on the edge of the bed she'd shared with Chidi for 3 years, her fingers running over the indentation his body had left in the mattress that morning. Had he known then? Had he planned it while she'd smiled and kissed him goodbye, while she'd told him she loved him? You need to eat something, Zainab said from the doorway, her voice carrying that careful, pitying tone Amara had grown to hate. I made jollof rice. I'm not hungry. Amara. I said I'm not hungry. The words came out sharper than intended, and Amara immediately felt guilty. None of this was Zainab's fault. I'm sorry. I need to be alone right now. Zainab's footsteps retreated, and Amara heard the soft click of the bedroom door closing. Finally alone, she reached for her phone, her fingers finding the business card she'd tucked under her pillow. Read text, she commanded, holding the card under the phone's camera. The automated voice spoke. Kola Adeyemi, Chief Executive Officer, Adeyemi Property Group. Mobile number 071. Amara's breath caught. Adeyemi Property Group. Even she, isolated as she'd been in her marriage, knew that name. They owned half of Santon, had developments across Lagos, Accra, and Nairobi. This wasn't just some good Samaritan who'd helped her at the mall. This was one of Africa's wealthiest men. Why would someone like that give her his personal number? Before she could overthink it, her phone rang, Chidi's ringtone, Whisket's essence, filling the room like a slap. Her hand hovered over the answer button. Part of her wanted to hear his voice, wanted him to say it was all a mistake, a cruel joke, that he was coming home. She answered. Amara. His voice was cold, businesslike, nothing like the warm tones that used to whisper, I love you, in the darkness. I see you made it home safely. How kind of you to care, she said, her own voice steadier than she felt. Tell me, Chidi, did you practice that text message? Was Chioma there when you wrote it, helping you find the right words to destroy your wife? A pause. Then, don't make this harder than it needs to be. I'm making this hard? Amara laughed, a bitter sound that tasted like ash. You abandoned me in a shopping mall. You sent my sister to collect me like lost luggage. And I'm the one making this hard. You know why I left. His voice dropped, became almost gentle, which somehow made it worse. I've been unhappy for a long time, Amara. I can't be your caretaker anymore. I need a partner, someone who can stand beside me at business dinners, someone who can network, someone who can. See. Amara finished, her nails digging into her palm. Say it, Chitty. Someone who isn't broken. Someone who isn't an embarrassment. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. She took a shaky breath. When did you start sleeping with her? The silence stretched so long she thought he'd hung up. 6 months ago, he finally admitted. It wasn't planned. It just happened. 6 months. Half a year of lies, of coming home to her bed, of making love to her while thinking of another woman. Half a year of I love yous, that meant nothing. I want the apartment, Amara said suddenly, surprised by her own words. In the divorce. This apartment is mine. And half of everything else. Chitty laughed. Actually laughed. Amara, be realistic. You can't live alone. You can barely make yourself breakfast without help. I'll give you a settlement, something fair, and you can move back to Lagos, stay with your aunt. But this apartment? My company pays for this. You have no claim to it. Your company that I supported while you built it? Amara's voice rose. The business dinners I attended even after I lost my sight? The clients I entertained? The connections I helped you make through my father's name before he died? I have no claim. That was before, Chitty said dismissively. Now you're a liability, Amara. My investors, they talk. They see me with a blind wife and they wonder if I'm weak, if I'm sentimental. Chioma, she's an asset. She's beautiful, capable, she can see, Amara finished again, her heart hardening with each word. I understand perfectly. When should I expect the divorce papers? My lawyer will bring them tomorrow. Sign them, Amara. Don't make this a fight you can't win. He hung up before she could respond. Amara sat in the darkness that was her constant companion, her phone clutched in her hand. A liability. That's what 3 years of marriage, 5 years of love, had reduced her to. A burden to be shed, an embarrassment to be hidden away in Lagos with distant relatives who would pity her, who would whisper about poor Amara Okonkwo who lost everything. Her parents, her sight, her husband. Oh. Her fingers found the business card again, traced the embossed letters. Kola Adeyemi had said if she needed legal help, anything, to call. But calling felt like admitting defeat, like accepting charity, like proving Chitty right that she couldn't stand on her own. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. Amara. Zainab's voice was hesitant. Someone's here to see you. A lawyer. He says Chitty sent him. Already? It hadn't even been 6 hours since the mall. Tell him to come back tomorrow, Amara said. He says it's urgent. He has papers for you to sign tonight. Of course he did. Chitty wanted this done quickly, quietly, before she could think, before she could fight. He probably thought she'd sign anything just to make the pain stop. Send him in, Amara said, straightening her spine. If Chitty wanted a quick divorce, she'd give him a war instead. The lawyer, he introduced himself as Femi Okafor, had a slick voice, the kind that sold swampland to tourists. He sat across from her at the dining table, and she could hear papers rustling as he spread them out. Mrs. Okonkwo, these are straightforward divorce papers. Mr. Okonkwo is offering you a settlement of 200,000 rand, plus 6 months' rent on a flat in Lagos. Very generous, considering. Considering I'm blind? Amara interrupted. Considering the marriage was relatively short and there are no children, Femi corrected smoothly. If you sign tonight, the money will be in your account by Monday. 200,000 rand. About 11,000 US dollars. For 3 years of marriage, for her dignity, for building his business with her father's connections, for standing by him when he was nobody. What about the apartment? Amara asked. That remains with Mr. Okonkwo. It's a company asset. And the company. I helped build it. My father's contacts. Mrs. Okonkwo, Femi's voice hardened slightly, You have no legal claim to Okonkwo Enterprises. You're not listed as a co-founder, you hold no shares, and you haven't been employed by the company in 3 years. This settlement is more than fair. Fair. There was that word again, weaponized against her. I need time to think, Amara said. Mr. Okonkwo was very clear. Sign tonight, or the offer decreases by 10% every day you delay. By next week, there will be no offer at all. Is that even legal? Do you have a lawyer to argue otherwise? Femi's question hung in the air like a threat. Amara thought of the business card under her pillow. Kola Adeyemi, Chief Executive Officer. A man wealthy enough to have the best lawyers in Africa. I'll sign, she said slowly, after I have my own lawyer review these documents. Come back on Monday. Mrs. Okonkwo. Monday, she repeated firmly. Or I don't sign at all, and we can see how long this drags out in court. I'm sure Chitty would hate the publicity, blind wife abandoned for his secretary. The tabloids would love that story. The silence that followed told her she'd struck a nerve. Monday, Femi finally agreed, his voice tight. But every day you delay is a day Chitty's reputation is at risk, Amara finished. I'm very aware. You can see yourself out. After he left, Zainab rushed in. Amara, what are you doing? That settlement, 200,000 rand, that's good money. If you fight him, you could end up with nothing. I could, Amara agreed. Or I could end up with what I actually deserve. She pulled out her phone, found the contact she'd saved earlier. Zainab, I need you to dial a number for me. Whose number? Someone who might help me fight back. As Zainab reluctantly dialed, Amara took a deep breath. She didn't know Kola Adeyemi, didn't know why he'd offered help, didn't know if he'd even remember her. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. She was done being treated like she was helpless. The phone rang once, twice, then a familiar deep voice answered, Kola Adeyemi. Mr. Adeyemi, Amara said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. This is Amara Okonkwo. We met at Santon City Mall today. You said if I needed legal help. I remember, he said, and she could hear the smile in his voice. I was hoping you'd call. Tell me everything. What do you think of Amara's decision to call Kola? Drop a comment below. And if you're loving this story of revenge and redemption, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Kola Adeyemi's office occupied the entire 42nd floor of the Adeyemi Tower in Santon, with floor-to-ceiling windows that Amara couldn't see but could feel. The way sound changed in vast spaces, the warmth of sunlight on her face, the subtle shift in air pressure. Mrs. Okonkwo, his assistant had said when they arrived, her Ghanaian accent crisp and professional. Mr. Adeyemi is expecting you. Right this way. Zainab's grip on Amara's arm had tightened as they walked, her sister's nervousness palpable. Are you sure about this? We don't know this man. He could want something in return. What could I possibly have that a billionaire wants? Amara had whispered back. Now, sitting in what she imagined was an expensive leather chair, facing a man she'd only spoken to twice. Once when he'd caught her from falling, once on the phone last night, Amara felt her courage wavering. The room smelled of sandalwood and old books, money and power. This was a mistake. She should leave, should take Chitty's settlement, should. Thank you for coming, Kola said, his voice cutting through her spiral. I know this must be difficult. Can I offer you something to drink? Coffee? Tea? Zainab, something for you. Water, please, Amara said, her throat suddenly dry. She heard him move, the clink of glass, water being poured. Then his footsteps approached, and he pressed a cool glass into her hand, his fingers briefly touching hers. They were warm, calloused, working hands, unexpected for a man born into wealth. I've had my legal team review the documents you sent over last night, Kola said, settling back into what she assumed was his desk chair. Your husband's settlement offer is insulting. 200,000 rand for 3 years of marriage, Zainab interjected bitterly. While he keeps everything, the apartment, the business, all of it. It's not just insulting, a new voice added. Female, sharp, authoritative. It's potentially illegal. Mrs. Okonkwo, I'm Thandai Moyo, Mr. Adeyemi's head counsel. Your husband's company, Okonkwo Enterprises, was established during your marriage using your father's business contacts and initial capital. Is that correct? Amara nodded, memories flooding back. My father introduced Chidi to investors, vouched for him. After my parents died in the accident, their life insurance. I gave Chidi $50,000 to expand the business. He said it was a loan, that he'd pay me back once the company turned a profit. Do you have documentation of this loan? Thandai asked. No, Amara admitted, shame burning her cheeks. It was my husband. I trusted him. I didn't think I needed papers. That's what they count on, Thandai said, but her voice wasn't judgmental, it was angry, directed outward. Men like your husband, they use trust as a weapon. But we have other angles. Mr. Adeyemi, if I may. Please, Kola said. Amara heard papers shuffling, the click of a laptop keyboard. I had my investigators do some preliminary research last night, Thandai continued. Okonkwo Enterprises has been growing rapidly, too rapidly for the revenue they report. I suspect creative accounting. Also, your husband purchased a townhouse in Camps Bay 3 months ago, registered under his mother's name. 2.3 million rand. Where did that money come from if the business is as modest as he claims? Amara's breath caught. Camps Bay. That's where he told me his mother lived. He's been visiting her every weekend for months, said she was sick, needed help. His mother lives in Durban, Thandai said flatly. She's perfectly healthy. I spoke to her myself this morning. She was quite surprised to learn her name was on property she's never seen. The betrayal cut deeper with each revelation. Every weekend, I'm visiting my sick mother, had been a lie. He'd been building a life with Chioma, buying them a love nest while Amara sat at home, blind and trusting, waiting for him to return. I'm going to be sick, Amara whispered. Immediately, Kola was there, his hand gentle on her shoulder. Breathe. Just breathe. I know it's a lot. It's fraud, Zainab said, her voice shaking with rage. He's been stealing from his own company, hiding assets, planning this for months. Which gives us leverage, Thandai interrupted. Mrs. Okonkwo, if we pursue this aggressively, we can do more than just get you a fair settlement. We can expose his financial crimes, potentially have him arrested for fraud and embezzlement. But I need to be honest with you. It will be ugly. It will be public. And it will take time. Amara sat very still, her mind racing. Part of her wanted exactly that, wanted Chidi exposed, humiliated, destroyed the way he'd destroyed her. But another part, the part that had loved him, that still remembered the man he'd been before, hesitated. Why are you helping me? She asked suddenly, turning toward where she knew Kola sat. You don't know me. This isn't your fight. What do you get out of this? The room went quiet. Amara could hear traffic from the street far below, the hum of the air conditioning, Zainab's nervous breathing beside her. A fair question, Kola finally said. The truth? I watched your husband abandon you in that mall. I watched him drop your shopping bags and walk away while you called his name. And I watched you refuse to collapse, refuse to make a scene, even though you had every right to. You stood there with more dignity than most people could manage in their finest moment. He paused. My mother was blind, Mrs. Okonkwo. She lost her sight to glaucoma when I was 12. And I watched people treat her like she was less than human because of it, like her disability erased everything else she was. Brilliant, funny, fierce. She died 5 years ago, and I swore I'd never stand by and watch someone be diminished because they couldn't see. Amara felt tears burning behind her useless eyes. I'm sorry about your mother. She would have liked you, Kola said softly. She would have told you to fight. So that's what I'm offering, a fight. Not charity. Not pity. A war, if you want one. My resources, my lawyers, my investigators. We'll tear apart every lie your husband has told, every asset he's hidden. And when we're done, you'll have what you deserve. And what do you want in return? Amara pressed. Nobody does something like this for free. I want to see justice done, Kola said. That's all. No strings, no expectations. If you want my help, you have it. If you'd rather take the settlement and move on, I'll respect that too. But you should know, men like Chidi Okonkwo, they count on us being too tired, too broken, too afraid to fight back. Every time we don't fight, they win. Amara thought about the townhouse in Camps Bay, about 6 months of lies, about being called a liability. She thought about every dinner party where she'd smiled and networked and helped build his business, about the life insurance money she'd handed over without a second thought, about this morning when he'd kissed her forehead and called her, my love. I want to fight, she said, her voice steady and cold. I want him to lose everything, the way he made me feel like I'd lost everything. I want the world to see what kind of man he really is. Then that's what we'll do, Thandao said with obvious satisfaction. But Mrs. Okonkwo, you need to prepare yourself. He'll fight back. He'll say terrible things about you. He'll try to paint you as bitter, vindictive, unable to accept the marriage is over. Are you ready for that? Before Amara could answer, her phone buzzed. She pulled it out, held it up. Read message. The automated voice announced, Message from Chidi Okonkwo. I hear you met with lawyers today. Very stupid, Amara. You have until Friday to sign the papers. After that, I'll make sure you get nothing. And I'll tell everyone the truth, that you've been unstable since the accident, that I've been your caretaker, that you're not competent to manage your own affairs. Don't test me. The room erupted. Zainab cursed in Igbo. Thandao's voice rose in outrage. But Kola's reaction was quieter, more dangerous. A sharp intake of breath, then silence. He just threatened to have you declared incompetent, Thandao said, her voice like ice. That's a legal threat. He's saying he'll try to have a conservatorship placed over you, claim you're not mentally fit to handle your own finances or make your own decisions. Can he do that? Zainab asked, her hand finding Amara's. He can try, Thandao said. It would be hard to prove, especially with her medical records showing she's psychologically sound. But the attempt alone would be damaging, public, humiliating. It's a power play. He's trying to scare her into signing. It's more than that, Kola said quietly. If he succeeds, even partially, Amara loses all leverage. Can't sue, can't access funds, can't fight back. It's not just about the divorce anymore. He's trying to take away her agency, her independence, everything. Amara felt cold despite the warm sunlight streaming through the windows. Chidi wasn't just leaving her. He was trying to destroy her, to prove she was exactly what he'd called her, a liability, broken, less than human. Then we move first, Thandao said. We file for divorce today, on your terms. We request a full forensic audit of his business. We freeze his assets. We make the first strike, and we make it count. Do it, Amara said without hesitation. Whatever it takes. He wants to make me powerless? Show him what powerless really looks like. There's one more thing, Kola said, and something in his voice made Amara's pulse quicken. Thandao's investigators found something else. About Chioma. What about her? Amara asked. She's pregnant, Thandao said bluntly. 3 months along. And she's been telling people at Okonkwo Enterprises that your husband is planning to marry her as soon as the divorce is finalized. The world tilted. Pregnant. Chioma was pregnant with Chidi's child. The child Amara had wanted, had begged for, but Chidi had always said, not yet, not until the business is more stable, not until we're ready. He'd been ready, just not with her. Amara, Zainab's voice came from far away. Amara, breathe. But she couldn't breathe. She couldn't think. The man she'd loved, who'd promised her forever, had been building a whole new life, a whole new family, while she'd been sitting in their apartment, blind and trusting and waiting. I need air, Amara gasped, standing abruptly. I need. Her cane caught on something, and she stumbled. This time, Kola caught her before she fell, his arms steady and strong, and for a moment she let herself lean into him, let herself be held by someone who didn't see her as a burden. "I've got you," he said softly. "I've got you." And standing there in the office of a man she barely knew, being offered a war she wasn't sure she could win, learning that her husband was having a baby with another woman, Amara made a decision. She would burn Chitty's world to the ground. And she would rise from the ashes. The betrayal keeps getting worse. What would you do in Amara's position? Comment below. If this story is getting your blood pumping, smash that like button and subscribe for the next chapter. Things are about to get intense. Share this with anyone who needs a reminder that blind doesn't mean powerless. The divorce papers hit Chitty's desk at Okonkwo Enterprises at exactly 9 a.m. on Thursday morning, hand-delivered by a courier with instructions to wait for his reaction. Amara wished she could see his face. Instead, she sat in her apartment now, as Thandai had filed an emergency injunction preventing Chitty from removing her until the divorce was settled, listening to Zainab read the news articles on her phone. Okonkwo Enterprises under investigation for financial fraud, Zainab read, barely containing her glee. The South African Revenue Service announced today that they're launching a full audit of the property development company following an anonymous tip about unreported income and hidden assets. She paused. Amara, it's everywhere. Business Daily, the Sowetan, even the BBC Africa picked it up. What about Chitty? Amara asked quietly. Has he called? As if summoned, her phone exploded with his ringtone. She let it ring 3 times before answering, putting it on speaker so Zainab could hear. You bitch. Chitty's voice came through, raw with rage, nothing like the controlled businessman she'd known. You vindictive, spiteful. Do you have any idea what you've done? My investors are pulling out. The bank has frozen my accounts. I have projects that will collapse, people who will lose their jobs. Good morning to you too, Chitty, Amara said calmly, though her heart was hammering. I got your message about declaring me incompetent. This is my response. This is insane. You're destroying everything I built. Everything we built, Amara corrected. With my father's money and connections. Or did you forget that part? I'll fight this, Chitty snarled. I'll drag you through every court in South Africa. By the time I'm done, you'll wish you'd taken my settlement. The settlement where you offered me table scraps while hiding millions? Amara's voice hardened. While buying a townhouse for your pregnant mistress. That settlement. Dead silence. Then, who told you about Chioma's baby? Amara laughed, cold and bitter. Did you think I wouldn't find out? Were you planning to tell me, or was I supposed to just disappear quietly while you played happy family with someone who can see? Amara, his voice shifted, became softer, manipulative in the way she now recognized. Listen, we can work this out. Call off your lawyers. I'll give you a better settlement, 300,000, 400. We can negotiate. No, Amara said simply. No. Do you understand what you're doing? If this audit finds anything, and they won't because there's nothing to find, but if they do, we both go down. You're listed as my wife. They'll investigate you too. Let them, Amara said. I have nothing to hide. Do you? Another pause, longer this time. When Chitty spoke again, his voice was pure venom. You want a war, Amara? Fine. But remember, I know things about you too. I know about the depression after the accident, the medications, the times you couldn't get out of bed for days. I kept records of everything, doctor's visits, prescriptions, every moment of weakness. If you think I won't use that to prove you're unstable, you're wrong. The threat landed like a physical blow. He documented her grief, her trauma, her recovery, not to support her, but to weaponize it later. How long had he been planning this? Before she could respond, he continued, and your precious lawyer, this Kola Adeyemi, do you really think he's helping you out of kindness? Men like that don't help women like you unless they want something. What did you promise him, Amara? What's he really after? Goodbye, Chitty, Amara said, her hand shaking as she reached for the end call button. This isn't over. he shouted. "You hear me? This isn't." She hung up. For a moment, neither she nor Zainab spoke. Then her sister's arms were around her, holding her as she trembled. "He's just trying to scare you," Zainab whispered. "The medical records, Thandai said they can't use normal grief and depression to prove incompetence. But they can use it to make me look unstable," Amara said. "In the media, in court. They can paint a picture of the poor, tragic blind woman who lost her mind along with her sight. Even if I win legally, I lose in the court of public opinion." Her phone buzzed again. This time, it was Thandai. "Mrs. Okonkwo, we have a problem," the lawyer said without preamble. "Chitty's team just filed a countersuit. They're claiming you're attempting to extort him, that you fabricated evidence of fraud, and they're requesting an emergency psychiatric evaluation to determine your competency to proceed with litigation." "Can they do that?" Zainab demanded. "They can request it. Whether a judge grants it is another matter. But Mrs. Okonkwo, I need to prepare you. They've also leaked a story to the tabloids. It's going to be in tomorrow's papers." Amara's stomach dropped. "What story?" "They're claiming you've been having an affair with Kola Adeyemi, that you met him before the separation, and that the divorce is your attempt to cash out and run off with a wealthier man. They have photos. The courier who delivered our papers yesterday apparently took pictures of you leaving Adeyemi Tower. They're saying you used your disability to manipulate a billionaire into fighting your battles." The room spun. "That's insane. I met Kola the day Chitty left me." "I know that. You know that. But perception is reality in these cases. By tomorrow morning, every newspaper in Johannesburg will be running some version of Blind Gold Digger Trades Up, Abandoned Wife, or Cunning Seductress." Amara couldn't breathe. This wasn't just a divorce anymore. This was character assassination, a public execution designed to destroy any sympathy she might receive. And worst of all, it would hurt Kola too, drag his name through the mud, make him regret ever helping her. "I need to talk to Kola," Amara said. "I need to give him a chance to back out before this gets worse." "He's already on his way to you," Thandai said. "He heard about the countersuit 10 minutes ago. Mrs. Okonkwo, Kola doesn't scare easily, but you should know, his family is very protective of the Adeyemi name. His father built that company from nothing, and Kola's spent his life protecting that legacy. This kind of scandal, it could cause problems." After Thandai hung up, Amara sat in silence, processing. She'd wanted revenge, wanted to make Chitty pay. But she hadn't considered the collateral damage, hadn't thought about how her war might destroy innocent people. "Maybe I should stop," she said quietly. "Take whatever settlement they offer now, before anyone else gets hurt." "Don't you dare," Zainab said fiercely. "Don't you dare let him win like this. He's the one who cheated, who stole, who lied. You're the victim here." "Am I?" Amara interrupted. "Or am I just dragging everyone down with me? Kola doesn't deserve this. His company doesn't deserve this. Maybe Chitty's right. Maybe I should have just taken the money and disappeared." A knock at the door interrupted them. Zainab went to answer, and moments later, Kola's voice filled the apartment. "Amara," he said, and she could hear the tension in his tone. "We need to talk." "I know," she said, standing, wishing desperately that she could see his face, read his expression. "I know about the tabloid story. I'm so sorry. You should pull out now, before this damages your reputation beyond repair." "Stop," Kola said, and suddenly he was right in front of her, his hands gently taking hers. "Just stop. Do you really think I didn't anticipate this? That I didn't know your husband would fight dirty? But your family—" "My family will be fine," he said firmly. "I called my father an hour ago, explained everything. You know what he said? He said, 'Good. That Okonkwo boy needs to be taught a lesson. Nobody abandons their wife in a shopping mall on my watch.'" Kola's voice softened. "Amara, I'm not going anywhere. But I need to know, are you ready for how ugly this is going to get? Because it's going to get worse before it gets better." "I don't know," Amara admitted. I wanted justice. But I didn't want to become the villain in my own story. You're not the villain, Kola said. You're the woman who refused to be erased. There's a difference. The papers won't see it that way. Tomorrow morning, I'll be the scheming blind woman who seduced a billionaire. Then we change the narrative, a new voice said. Amara recognized it immediately, Kola's assistant from yesterday. Sorry to interrupt, but I've been working on something. Mr. Adeyemi, you might want to hear this. Abeni, what did you do? Kola asked, but there was fondness in his tone. I may have reached out to a friend at ENCA, Abeni said. She's interested in doing an exclusive interview with Mrs. Okonkwo. Her side of the story, unedited, no tabloid spin. It would air tomorrow night, right when Chitty's smear campaign hits its peak. An interview? Amara's hands went cold. I can't. I've never done anything like that. Which is exactly why it would work, Abeni pressed. You're not polished, not media-trained. You're real. Tell them what happened, how he left you at the mall, how you found out about the fraud, about Chioma's pregnancy. Let people see the truth. They'll tear her apart, Zainab protested. The comments, the trolls. They'll tear her apart anyway, Kola said quietly. At least this way, she controls the story. He squeezed Amara's hands. But it's your choice. I'll support whatever you decide. Amara thought about Chitty's voice on the phone, full of rage and threats. She thought about the medical records he'd kept like ammunition, the townhouse he'd bought while calling her a burden, the baby he'd made while telling her they weren't ready. She thought about his mother, who didn't even know her name was on fraudulent property. She thought about every woman who'd been abandoned, betrayed, told she was too broken to deserve better. Set up the interview, Amara said, her voice steady. If Chitty wants to destroy me in the press, I'll meet him there. Let's see how the public feels about a man who abandons his blind wife for his pregnant secretary. That's my girl, Zainab said proudly. But as Abeni started making calls and Kola began coaching her on interview techniques, Amara's phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Read message, she commanded quietly, moving away from the others. The automated voice spoke words that made her blood run cold. Back off the audit or I'll make sure everyone knows the real reason you went blind. That car accident wasn't an accident, was it? Your father was drunk, speeding, trying to get away from someone. How would it look if the papers knew Amara Okonkwo, tragic victim, is actually the daughter of a drunk driver who killed an entire family that night? Who covered it up with money and connections? That's the legacy you're protecting. Think about it. The phone slipped from Amara's fingers. Because whoever sent that message was right. Her father had been drunk that night. And the accident that killed him, her mother, and took her side had also killed a family of 4 in the other car, a fact that had been quietly buried with police bribes and payoffs. A secret she'd kept for 3 years. A secret that, if exposed, would destroy not just her case, but everything her father had built, her family's name, her own credibility. And somehow, someone knew. Oh no. Just when you thought it couldn't get worse. Who sent that message? What will Amara do? Drop your theories in the comments below. If you're hooked on this story, smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell. You do not want to miss the next chapter. Share this with your friends who love a good revenge story. The bathroom floor was cold against Amara's knees as she knelt over the toilet, retching until there was nothing left. Behind the closed door, she could hear voices, Zainab calling her name, Kola asking what was wrong, Abeni saying something about giving her space. But all Amara could hear was the automated voice reading that message over and over in her mind. That car accident wasn't an accident, was it? 3 years ago, on the Lagos-Ibadan expressway, her father had been driving home from a business dinner. She'd been in the back seat, already half asleep. Her mother had been arguing with him, telling him to pull over, that he'd had too much to drink. And then there had been lights, screaming, the sound of metal tearing apart, and pain, so much pain, followed by darkness that never ended. When she'd woken up in the hospital 3 days later, blind and orphaned, the police had told her it was a tragic accident. A truck had swerved into their lane. Her father had tried to avoid it. No one's fault, just terrible luck. But she'd overheard her uncle Obiora talking to the police captain weeks later, when he thought she was asleep. Heard the word settlement. Heard the amount, 2 million naira for the other family, the Okafors, who'd been wiped out in the crash. Heard her uncle say, "We can't have people knowing Emeka was drunk. It would destroy his business reputation, and Amara would lose everything." So they'd paid. They'd buried the truth along with the bodies. And Amara had convinced herself it was grief, morphine-induced hallucinations, that her father hadn't been drunk, that they hadn't essentially bought silence over 4 deaths. But someone knew. And that someone was using it to protect Chidi. "Amara, please open the door." Kola's voice was gentle but firm. "Whatever that message said, we can handle it together." She wanted to laugh. Handle it? How did you handle the fact that your entire life was built on a lie? That your parents had caused 4 deaths, a husband, a wife, a teenage son, a little girl barely 6 years old, and covered it up with money? "I need to be alone," she called out, her voice hoarse. "No, you don't," Zainab said, and there was something different in her sister's tone. "Amara, open this door right now, or I'm telling them everything." Everything. Zainab knew. Of course she knew. She'd been there at the hospital, had probably heard the same conversations. With shaking hands, Amara unlocked the door. Immediately, Zainab was beside her, helping her up, guiding her back to the couch where Kola and Abani waited. "Someone sent her a threatening message," Zainab explained. "About our father. About the accident." "What about it?" Kola asked carefully. Amara took a shuddering breath. If she was going to lose everything anyway, she might as well lose it telling the truth. "My father was drunk the night we crashed. He killed a family, the Okafors. A mother, father, 2 children. And my uncle paid them off, bribed the police to call it an accident. I've been living with that for 3 years. The silence that followed was suffocating." She waited for Kola to stand up, to leave, to wash his hands of her and her corrupt, criminal family. Waited for him to realize he'd tied himself to a woman whose very existence was built on blood money and lies. "Who else knows this?" Kola finally asked, his voice unreadable. "My uncle. The police officers who were paid off. And apparently, whoever sent this message." Amara's hands twisted together. "They're threatening to expose it if I don't drop the audit against Chidi." "Can I see the message?" Thandio's voice. When had she arrived? Amara heard her phone being taken, the lawyer's sharp intake of breath as she read. "This is from a burner number, untraceable. But the information is too specific, too detailed. Someone close to your family sent this. Someone who was there." "Uncle Obiora," Zainab said immediately. "It has to be. He's the only one who knew everything." "Why would your uncle help Chidi?" Abani asked. "Because Chidi has been doing business with Uncle Obiora for the past year," Amara said bitterly. "Building a shopping complex in Lagos. Uncle Obiora invested heavily. If Chidi's company collapses, Uncle Obiora loses millions. So he's willing to destroy you to protect his investment," Kola said, and now there was anger in his voice. "To use your trauma, your parents' deaths, as blackmail." "He's right though," Amara whispered. "If this comes out, I'm finished. The press will crucify me. The daughter of a drunk driver who killed a family and bought her way out of justice? Any sympathy I have evaporates. And worse." Her voice broke. "Those children. That family. They deserve better than to be forgotten, covered up. Maybe this is karma. Maybe I deserve." "Stop," Kola said sharply. "You were a victim too. You were asleep in the back seat. You didn't drive drunk. You didn't pay anyone off. You were a grieving, newly blind 25-year-old who had just lost everything. What were you supposed to do?" "I was supposed to tell the truth." Amara shot back. "I should have gone to the police, exposed the cover-up, made sure the Okafor family got real justice, not blood money." "And then what?" Thandio interrupted. "You would have been investigated, possibly charged as an accessory. Your father's estate would have been seized. Every asset frozen. Where would you have lived? How would you have paid for your rehabilitation, your medical care? You were blind, orphaned, and traumatized. No one can blame you for staying silent. Chitty will, Amara said. The press will. This gives him everything he needs. Proof that I'm not the innocent victim, that my family is corrupt, that I'm a hypocrite going after him for fraud when my own wealth came from a cover-up. Her phone rang. Unknown number. Against her better judgment, she answered. Mrs. Okonkwo. The voice was male, older, with that particular Lagos accent that spoke of old money and older corruption. Not her uncle, but someone like him. I represent certain parties who are concerned about your current legal actions. Who is this? Amara demanded. That's not important. What's important is that you understand the precarious position you're in. The Okafor family, what's left of them, consists of one survivor, the grandmother, Mrs. Ngozi Okafor. She's 78 years old, living in a nursing home in Ibadan, suffering from dementia. She doesn't know her entire family is dead. Your uncle's payments ensure she stays comfortable, unaware, at peace. Amara felt bile rise again. You're using a dementia patient as leverage? I'm explaining reality. If you pursue this divorce publicly, if you don't drop the fraud investigation, that story about the accident will become public. And someone will have to tell Mrs. Okafor the truth about how her family really died. Imagine that, finding out at 78 that your daughter, son-in-law, and grandchildren were killed by a drunk driver who paid to cover it up. That the woman on TV claiming to be a victim is the daughter of their killer. Can you live with that? You're a monster, Zainab spat. I'm a businessman, the voice corrected. And I'm offering Mrs. Okonkwo a choice. Sign the divorce papers. Accept the settlement. Move back to Lagos. In return, Mrs. Okafor lives out her final years in peace, and your family's secret stays buried. Everyone wins. Except Amara, Kola said coldly, and Amara realized he'd taken the phone, put it on speaker. Except the woman who was abandoned, cheated on, and defrauded. She just has to swallow her dignity and let her abuser walk free. Mr. Adeyemi. The voice turned oily, ingratiating. I'm disappointed. I thought a man of your intelligence would understand how business works. You're risking your reputation, your company's image. For what? A woman you barely know. Be smart. Walk away. Let Mrs. Okonkwo handle her own affairs. I don't think I will, Kola said pleasantly. In fact, I think I'll double down. Thandile, how quickly can we get a protection order for Mrs. Ngozi Okafor? Protection order? The voice sputtered. On what grounds? On the grounds that unnamed parties are using threats regarding her welfare as blackmail. I'll also be assigning private security to her nursing home, effective immediately. And I'll be paying for the country's best dementia specialists to evaluate whether she should be informed about her family in a controlled, therapeutic setting, not used as a weapon by criminals. Silence. Then, you're making a mistake, Adeyemi. No, Kola said softly. You made the mistake. You threatened someone under my protection. Now let me tell you how this is going to work. You're going to tell Chidi Okonkwo and Obiora Okonkwo, yes, I know it's him, that their blackmail scheme failed. The audit continues. The divorce continues. And if I find out anyone has approached Mrs. Ngozi Okafor or leaked that story to the press, I will personally fund an independent investigation into every bribe paid, every police officer involved, and every person who helped cover up those deaths. Including your client. Are we clear? You can't. I'm Kola Adeyemi, he said, and for the first time, Amara heard the full weight of his power, his wealth, his name. I can do whatever I want. Test me. The line went dead. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Zainab let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. Did that really just happen? Did you just threaten to expose our uncle? I threatened to expose everyone involved in a criminal conspiracy, Kola corrected, including the people who think they can use a grieving elderly woman as blackmail. Thandile, I need that protection order filed within the hour. And get me the best private security in Abaddon, someone to watch Mrs. Okafor around the clock. Already on it, Thandive said, her fingers flying over her laptop. But Kola, if we go down this road, we need to be prepared for total war. Obiora Okonkwo has connections, police, government officials, judges. He won't go down quietly. Good, Kola said. Neither will we. Amara sat frozen, trying to process what had just happened. In the span of minutes, Kola had turned her greatest weakness into a weapon, had protected a woman she'd never met, had essentially declared war on her uncle and everyone connected to the cover-up. Why? She whispered. Why are you doing all this? You could have walked away. You should have walked away. Kola's hand found hers, warm and steady. Because someone has to stand up to men like Chidi and Obiora. Because you deserve better than to be blackmailed into silence. And because... He paused, and she heard him take a breath. Because my mother spent her last years being told she was a burden, that her blindness made her less valuable, that she should be grateful for whatever scraps people threw her. I watched her light dim, watched her believe the lies. And I swore I'd never let that happen to anyone else if I could stop it. I'm not your mother, Amara said softly. No, Kola agreed. You're stronger. You're fighting back. And I'm going to make damn sure you win. Amara's phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from Chidi. You just made the biggest mistake of your life. I'll see you in court. And when I'm done, you'll have nothing. No money, no reputation, no dignity. You and your billionaire boyfriend destroyed me. I'll return the favor. Zainab read it aloud, her voice shaking with anger. Let him try, Amara said, and she was surprised to find she meant it. The fear was still there, the shame about her father's actions, the guilt about the Okafor family. But underneath it all was something new. Fury. Pure, clean, righteous fury. Chidi had used her blindness against her, had made her feel helpless, had tried to erase her. Her uncle was using her trauma as blackmail. They all thought she would crumble, would accept whatever scraps they offered, would disappear quietly. They were wrong. The interview with ENCA, Amara said suddenly. I want to do it. But I want to tell the whole truth, about Chidi, about the fraud, and about my father's accident. Everything. No more secrets, no more lies. Let them judge me for what really happened, not some twisted version. Amara, are you sure? Zainab asked. Once you say it publicly. Once I say it publicly, they can't use it against me anymore, Amara finished. The truth might hurt. But it's better than living in fear of exposure. She turned toward where she knew Kola sat. Will you still help me? Even if this destroys your reputation too. My reputation will survive, Kola said. The question is, are you ready for what comes next? Because once you tell that story, there's no taking it back. Amara thought of Mrs. Ngozi Okafor, living in peaceful ignorance while her family's deaths were used as a bargaining chip. She thought of the Okafor children, whose lives had been stolen and then forgotten, buried under bribes and silence. She thought of every person who'd ever been told they were too broken, too damaged, too blind to deserve justice. I'm ready, she said. Let's burn it all down. This story is getting intense. Amara's about to expose everything on live TV. Her father's secret, Chidi's betrayal, all of it. What do you think will happen? Comment your predictions below. If you're loving this journey, hit that like button and subscribe. The next chapter is going to blow your mind. Share this story with someone who needs to hear that the truth will always set you free. The ENCA studio felt smaller than Amara had imagined. The air thick with the scent of hairspray and the chemical brightness of television lights she couldn't see but could feel heating her skin. Mrs. Okonkwo, can you hear me? The interviewer's voice came through the earpiece. Naledi Masiko, one of South Africa's most respected journalists. We'll live in 3 minutes. Are you comfortable? Do you need anything? Just water, Amara said, her throat dry. Somewhere offset, she could hear Zainab's nervous breathing, Kola's steady presence like an anchor in the chaos. The past 24 hours had been a blur. Thandive's legal team working through the night. Security personnel dispatched to Ibadan to watch over Mrs. Okafor. Chitty's lawyer calling every hour with increasingly desperate settlement offers. 500,000 rand, 700,000, a million, all rejected. And the tabloids. Oh, the tabloids had been vicious. Gold digger or grieving widow, screamed one headline. Blind ambition. How Amara Okonkwo seduced a billionaire, proclaimed another. Her favorite, in its sheer audacity, had been, from shopping mall to mansion, the calculated rise of Johannesburg's most cunning woman. They'd printed photos of her leaving Adeyemi Tower, photos of Kola catching her when she'd stumbled at the mall, even a grainy shot of them talking outside her apartment. In each one, her white cane was visible, but somehow the tabloids had made even her disability seem like a calculated prop, a tool for manipulation. The morning shows had been worse. Panel discussions about women who use their vulnerabilities to trap wealthy men. Think pieces about the problem with blind trust, an actual headline that had made Amara want to throw her phone across the room. And through it all, Chitty had been silent in the press, letting others do his dirty work while he played the wounded victim behind closed doors. Until 2 hours ago, when he'd posted on social media, a long, carefully crafted statement about the woman I loved who changed after her accident, about standing by her through depression and instability, about how sometimes love isn't enough when someone refuses to heal. The comments had been brutal. Thousands of people calling her ungrateful, greedy, manipulative. Men's rights activists had latched onto it as proof that women always take advantage. Disability advocates were divided, some supporting her, others accusing her of making all blind people look bad. 1 minute, the producer called out. Amara's hands trembled. Kola had offered to sit beside her during the interview, to be visible support, but she'd refused. This was her story to tell, her truth to own. He couldn't protect her from this. 30 seconds. She thought of Mrs. Ngozi Okafor, safely guarded now but still unaware that her family was gone. Amara had spoken to the dementia specialist that morning, had asked if the truth should be told. In cases like this, the doctor had said gently, sometimes mercy is more important than truth. Mrs. Okafor lives in a reality where her family is simply away, visiting, coming back soon. Breaking through that delusion would be cruel, not kind. She's happy in her confusion. Sometimes, that's the best we can offer. So the Okafors would remain a secret, at least from their grandmother. But not from the world. Not anymore. 10 seconds. And we're live. Good evening. Naledi's voice was warm but professional. Tonight, we bring you an exclusive interview with Amara Okonkwo, the woman at the center of what has become South Africa's most talked-about divorce. Mrs. Okonkwo, thank you for joining us. Thank you for having me, Amara said, her voice steadier than she felt. Let's start with what everyone wants to know. What really happened at Sandton City Mall 3 days ago? Amara took a breath. My husband, Chitty Okonkwo, abandoned me there. We'd gone shopping together, or so I thought. He helped me try on clothes, held my bags, acted like everything was normal. Then he put the bags down and walked away. When I realized he was gone, I called for him. He didn't answer. Instead, he sent me a text message saying he was leaving me, that taking care of a blind woman wasn't what he'd signed up for, and that he'd met someone else. She heard Naledi shift in her seat. That must have been devastating. It was humiliating, Amara corrected. Not just the abandonment, but the method. He could have told me at home, in private. He chose the most public, most degrading way possible. And I realized later, that was the point. He wanted me to feel helpless, to be reminded that I'm dependent, that without him, I'm lost. But you weren't lost, Naledi observed. You found one of Africa's most prominent businessmen, Kola Adeyemi, who has since become your legal champion. How did that happen? Here it was. The moment everyone was waiting for, confirmation of the affair rumors, the gold digger narrative. I literally stumbled into him, Amara said, and allowed herself a small smile. After I got my husband's text, I was trying to leave the mall. I was crying, disoriented, and I tripped. Mr. Adeyemi caught me. He asked if I was all right. I wasn't. And he gave me his business card, told me if I needed help, legal help specifically, to call him. Did you know who he was? Not until later, when my phone read the card to me. If I'd known, I probably wouldn't have called. I don't like charity, and I assumed that's what it was, pity for the poor blind woman abandoned in a mall. But you did call him. I did. Because my husband's lawyer showed up that same night with divorce papers that offered me essentially nothing while my husband kept everything, including assets I helped him acquire, including money I gave him for my parents' life insurance after they died. And that's when you discovered the alleged fraud. That's when Mr. Adeyemi's legal team discovered it, Amara corrected. I didn't go looking to destroy my husband's business. I went looking for a fair settlement. But the investigation uncovered hidden assets, unreported income, property purchased under false names. My husband wasn't just leaving me, he'd been stealing from his own company to build a life with someone else. Naledi paused. That someone else is Chioma Nwosu, your husband's secretary, correct? And she's pregnant. 3 months pregnant, Amara confirmed, and despite her preparation, saying it out loud still hurt. I found out the same day I learned about the townhouse he bought her. We'd been trying for a baby for 2 years. He always said we weren't ready, that the business needed more stability. But apparently, he was ready, just not with me. Mrs. Okonkwo, I have to ask the question everyone's wondering. What is your relationship with Kola Adeyemi? The tabloids are claiming. The tabloids are wrong, Amara interrupted firmly. Mr. Adeyemi is exactly what he's always said he is, someone who saw an injustice and chose to help. His mother was blind. He understands how people with disabilities are often dismissed, infantilized, or taken advantage of. That's why he's helping me. Not because we're having an affair, not because I seduced him, but because he believes I deserve justice. And yet, you must admit, the optics are challenging. A wealthy, attractive man coming to the rescue of a vulnerable woman. I'm not vulnerable, Amara said, her voice sharpening. I'm blind. There's a difference. I have a disability, yes. But I'm not helpless, not incompetent, and not incapable of fighting my own battles. Mr. Adeyemi provided resources, lawyers, investigators, protection. But the decision to fight, that was mine. The courage to be here right now, knowing I'll be torn apart in the comments, that's mine too. She felt the interview shifting, felt Naledi recalibrating. Let's talk about the accusations your husband has made, Naledi said. He's claimed you've been unstable since your accident, that you've struggled with depression, that he's been your caretaker for 3 years. Is any of that true? Here it was. The moment of truth. Yes, Amara said simply. After I lost my sight in the car accident that killed my parents, I was severely depressed. I spent months in rehabilitation learning how to navigate the world without vision. I took antidepressants. I saw a therapist. There were days I couldn't get out of bed, days I wished I'd died in that crash too. She heard Naledi's sharp intake of breath, clearly not the answer she'd expected. But here's what my husband conveniently leaves out, Amara continued. I recovered. I learned to be independent. I can cook, clean, navigate public transport, manage my own finances. Yes, Chitty helped me sometimes, describing things I couldn't see, reading labels, driving places. But I helped him too. I networked at his business events. I provided emotional support. I gave him money to expand his company. Marriage is supposed to be partnership, not indentured servitude. And yet, he's claiming you're not mentally competent to handle this divorce. Because he's afraid, Amara interrupted. He's afraid I'll expose the fraud. He's afraid of losing everything he stole. So he's weaponizing my medical history, trying to paint me as crazy, as incompetent, as someone who can't be trusted. It's called gaslighting, and it's a tactic abusers use all the time. That's a strong word, abuser. It's an accurate word, Amara said. Emotional abuse isn't always violence. Sometimes it's abandonment. Sometimes it's humiliation. Sometimes it's telling someone they're a burden, they're too damaged, they should be grateful for scraps. That's abuse. And I refuse to accept it anymore. Naledi was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. Mrs. Okonkwo, there's been some speculation about your family, specifically about the accident that killed your parents and left you blind. Can you talk about that? Amara's heart hammered. This was it. The moment she'd been dreading and preparing for. My father was driving drunk, she said, the words falling like stones. I was in the back seat, asleep. My mother was begging him to pull over. He refused. And then, there was another car. A family. The Okafors, parents and 2 children. They all died. My parents died. And I lost my sight. The studio was utterly silent. The police, Amara continued, her voice shaking but determined, called it an accident. They blamed a truck swerving, poor road conditions. But that wasn't true. My father caused that crash. And my uncle, my father's brother, paid off the police, paid off the Okafor family's surviving relatives, to keep it quiet. To protect my father's reputation and my inheritance. Did you know about this cover-up? Naledi asked carefully. Not immediately. I was in the hospital, blind and grieving. But I found out weeks later. And Amara's voice broke. I did nothing. I was 25, traumatized, newly disabled, and I told myself I'd misunderstood, that it couldn't be true. But it was. And I stayed silent. For 3 years, I've lived with the knowledge that my family's wealth, my father's legacy, is built on the bodies of people we killed and then forgot. Why are you telling us this now? Because someone tried to use it as blackmail, Amara said. My uncle, working with my husband, threatened to expose this secret if I didn't drop my divorce case, if I didn't accept my husband's insulting settlement and disappear quietly. They thought this would destroy me. And it might. But I'd rather be destroyed by the truth than controlled by lies. She took a shaky breath. The Okafor family deserves to be remembered. Not as a secret, not as a bargaining chip, but as people who were robbed of their lives by my father's choices. I can't bring them back. I can't undo what happened. But I can tell the truth. And I can make sure that the settlement money, blood money, goes to establishing a foundation in their name. Something for road safety, drunk driving prevention, something that turns their tragedy into something meaningful. That's incredibly brave, Naledi said, and Amara could hear genuine emotion in her voice. It's not brave, Amara said quietly. It's necessary. I've been silent too long. About my father's actions, about my husband's abuse, about the ways people with disabilities are expected to be grateful for mistreatment. I'm done being silent. I'm done being small. And I'm done letting men like Chidi Okonkwo tell me I'm worthless. What do you want people to understand about your situation? I want them to understand that divorce isn't always about 2 people growing apart. Sometimes it's about one person realizing they deserve better. I want them to understand that disability doesn't equal weakness, that blind doesn't mean helpless. And I want women, especially older women who've been told they're too old, too damaged, too much of a burden, to know they can fight back. They can demand respect. They can refuse to accept crumbs from men who should be offering feasts. And Kola Adeyemi? What role will he play in your future? Amara smiled, tired but genuine. Mr. Adeyemi has been kind to me. But this isn't a fairy tale. I'm not a damsel, he's not my prince, and my happy ending doesn't depend on any man. Right now, he's my lawyer's employer and my ally in court. Beyond that, she shrugged. I'm focused on rebuilding my life on my own terms. If he's part of that life eventually, wonderful. If not, I'll still be fine. Because I'm learning something important. I don't need anyone to complete me. I just need people who won't try to diminish me. Mrs. Okonkwo, thank you for your honesty tonight, Naledi said. I think you've given us all a lot to think about. Thank you for listening, Amara said. And, we're clear, the producer called out. Immediately, Zainab was there, arms around Amara, crying. You did it. Oh my God, you actually did it. How bad is it going to be? Amara asked quietly. Bad, Cola's voice answered honestly, his hand finding her shoulder. But also good. You gave them the truth. Now we see what they do with it. As they left the studio, Amara's phone began buzzing incessantly. Messages flooding in, notifications exploding. Zainab read some of them aloud. From the Blind South Africans Association, thank you for your courage. From a woman named Thandi, my husband left me after my mastectomy. Seeing you fight back gives me hope. From Chitty, you just destroyed both of us. I hope you're happy. But there was one more message, one that Zainab read with a trembling voice. From the South African Revenue Service, based on tonight's revelations and our ongoing investigation, we are expanding our inquiry into both Okonkwo Enterprises and the 2022 traffic incident cover-up. Expect contact from our office within 24 hours. Amara sat very still. She'd known this might happen, that telling the truth would have consequences not just for Chitty, but for her uncle, for her family's legacy, possibly for her own freedom if investigators decided she'd been complicit in the cover-up. But as Kola squeezed her hand and Zainab held her tight, Amara realized something. For the first time in 3 years, she felt light. The secrets had been crushing her, the lies had been poisoning her, the fear had been controlling her. Now there was only truth. And whatever came next, she'd face it standing tall. Her phone rang again. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her press accept. Mrs. Okonkwo? An elderly woman's voice, speaking in Yoruba. My name is Adiz. I was Ngozi Okafor's sister. Her younger sister. Amara's breath stopped. I just watched your interview, Adiz continued, her voice thick with tears. For 3 years, I've wondered what really happened to my sister's family. The police said it was an accident, but something always felt wrong. And now I know. My niece, my nephew, my sister's daughter and son-in-law, they died because of your father. I'm so sorry, Amara whispered, tears streaming down her face. I'm so sorry. I know, Adiz said. I heard it in your voice. You're sorry. And you're trying to make it right. That foundation you mentioned, for road safety. I want to help. I want to work with you. I want their deaths to mean something. Amara couldn't speak, could only sob. My sister doesn't remember them, Adiz continued softly. The dementia took those memories. In a way, that's mercy. But I remember. And I want the world to remember. Will you help me do that? Yes, Amara managed. Yes. I promise. After they hung up, Amara sat in the back of Kola's car as they drove through Johannesburg's night streets, processing everything. She'd lost her marriage, possibly her freedom if the investigation went poorly, definitely her privacy. But she'd gained something too, herself. The woman who'd been abandoned in a shopping mall was gone. In her place stood someone stronger, someone who'd told the truth even when it hurt, someone who refused to be silenced. And somewhere in Johannesburg, Chitty Okonkwo was watching his world collapse. Just like he'd tried to make hers collapse. Justice, Amara was learning, wasn't always pretty. But it was always worth fighting for. Amara just exposed everything on live television. The truth about her father, the Okafors, all of it. What did you think of her interview? Comment below. Are you Team Amara or do you think she went too far? Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for the final chapter. We're almost at the end, and you won't believe how this story concludes. Hit that notification bell. The courtroom in the Johannesburg High Court was packed with journalists, bloggers, and curious onlookers who'd been following what the media now called the Okonkwo affair. Amara could hear them rustling, whispering, phones buzzing despite the no-recording rule. It had been 3 weeks since the interview. 3 weeks of chaos. The response had been explosive. Within hours of the broadcast, #Justice for the Okafors had trended across Africa. Amara's confession about her father's drunk driving and the subsequent cover-up had sparked a nationwide conversation about corruption, privilege, and accountability. Some called her brave. Others called her a hypocrite seeking redemption through publicity. The South African Revenue Service had moved swiftly. Chitty's bank accounts remained frozen. Okonkwo Enterprises was under full audit. And her uncle, Obiora Okonkwo, had been arrested in Lagos 2 days ago on charges of bribery and obstruction of justice related to the 2022 accident cover-up. But the biggest shock had come from an unexpected source. Chioma Nwosu, Chitty's pregnant secretary, had walked into Thandai's office 5 days after the interview with a flash drive containing 3 years' worth of emails, financial records, and recorded conversations. She'd sat across from Amara, who she'd never met face-to-face, and said simply, "I didn't know he was married when we started. He told me he was divorced, that you were his ex-wife who refused to move on. And I believed him. Until I saw your interview." The flash drive had contained everything. Evidence of Chitty diverting company funds to personal accounts. Conversations with Uncle Obiora about the blackmail plan. Even a recording from 2 months ago where Chitty had laughed with a business partner about getting rid of the blind baggage once Chioma got pregnant. "I'm 24 years old," Chioma had said, her hand on her small belly. "I thought I was in love. I thought we were building something real. But I was just convenient, useful, another tool." She'd looked in Amara's direction, tears in her voice. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't know what he was really like." Amara had reached across the table, found Chioma's hand, squeezed it. "Neither did I. For a long time, neither did I." Now, sitting in the courtroom beside Thandai, with Kola in the row behind her and Zainab holding her hand, Amara listened to the final arguments of her divorce case. Chitty's lawyer, a new one since Femi Okafor had withdrawn from the case citing ethical conflicts, was making a desperate final plea. "Your Honor, my client admits to mistakes. The affair was wrong. The financial irregularities are being addressed. But Mrs. Okonkwo's public crusade has destroyed a legitimate business, cost dozens of people their jobs, and exposed my client to criminal prosecution for what amounts to accounting errors." "Accounting errors?" Thandai stood, her voice sharp. "Your Honor, the evidence shows systematic fraud spanning 3 years, totaling over 15 million rand in diverted funds. This wasn't an error. It was theft. The point remains," Chitty's lawyer continued, "that Mrs. Okonkwo has used her disability and her tragic story to manipulate public opinion, to align herself with one of Africa's wealthiest men, and to wage a vindictive campaign." "Objection," Thandai cut in. "Is counsel seriously suggesting that Mrs. Okonkwo's blindness makes her incapable of rightfully seeking justice?" Judge Mbali Dlamini, a woman in her 60s with a reputation for no-nonsense rulings, looked over her glasses at Chitty's lawyer. "I'd like to hear the answer to that question as well, counsel." "That's not what I'm suggesting, Your Honor. I'm simply noting that Mrs. Okonkwo has presented herself as a victim when in fact, she was abandoned in a shopping mall by her husband of 3 years, who then attempted to coerce her into accepting an inadequate settlement while hiding millions in assets." Judge Dlamini's voice was dry. "Yes, truly, she sounds like the villain here." Scattered laughter rippled through the courtroom. Amara felt herself smile despite the tension. "Your Honor," Chitty's lawyer tried again, "we're prepared to offer a revised settlement. 2 million rand, plus the apartment in Santon for Mrs. Okonkwo's use for 5 years. "No," Amara said quietly. The courtroom went silent. "Mrs. Okonkwo?" Judge Dlamini prompted. Amara stood, feeling Thandai's supportive hand on her arm. "Your Honor, may I speak?" "This is highly irregular," Chitty's lawyer began. "But I'll allow it," Judge Dlamini said. "Mrs. Okonkwo, go ahead." Amara took a breath. Somewhere in this courtroom, Chitty was sitting, watching her. She couldn't see his face, couldn't read his expression, but she could imagine his rage, his disbelief that she'd come this far. 3 weeks ago, I stood in a television studio and told the truth about my father's actions. About the people he killed and the cover-up that followed. I did that knowing it would destroy my family's reputation. Knowing I might face criminal charges. Knowing people would judge me, hate me, call me a hypocrite. She turned slightly, addressing the entire courtroom. I did it anyway. Because I was tired of secrets. Tired of shame. Tired of letting fear control my choices. And I learned something important. The truth is terrifying, but it's also freeing. Mrs. Okonkwo, this is very moving, but, Chitty's lawyer tried to interrupt. I'm not finished, Amara said firmly. Your Honor, I don't want 2 million rand. I don't want the apartment. What I want is a full accounting of every asset my husband acquired during our marriage, every debt he incurred, every investment made. I want the court to determine a fair division based on South African law, not on what my husband thinks I deserve. Mrs. Okonkwo, my client is facing criminal charges, the lawyer protested. His assets may be seized. Then I'll get my share before they're seized, Amara said simply. Your Honor, I also want to formally dissolve any financial connection to the settlement money paid to the Okafor family after the 2022 accident. I'm working with Adiz Okafor, the surviving aunt, to establish the Okafor Family Road Safety Foundation. Any money I receive from my divorce settlement will be donated to that foundation. I don't want blood money. I want justice. Judge Dlamini leaned back in her chair, studying Amara with an expression she couldn't see but could feel. Mrs. Okonkwo, you're aware that by refusing this settlement, you risk getting less if the criminal case proceeds? I'm aware, Your Honor. But I'd rather have less earned honestly than more stolen through fraud. Your Honor, my client would like to address the court, Chitty's lawyer said suddenly, sounding panicked. Mr. Okonkwo, do you wish to speak? Amara heard movement, a chair scraping. Then Chitty's voice, the voice she'd once loved, now just sounded tired and bitter. Your Honor, He paused. I want to apologize to my wife. Ex-wife. Whatever she is now. Amara's spine stiffened. I was wrong, Chitty continued, and she couldn't tell if he meant it or if this was another manipulation. I was wrong to leave her the way I did. Wrong to hide money. Wrong to threaten her. I was afraid. Afraid of being tied to someone with a disability forever. Afraid of what people would think. Afraid I'd made a mistake marrying her after the accident. The courtroom was utterly silent. But the real mistake, Chitty said, his voice cracking, was believing that Amara's blindness made her weak. She's the strongest person I've ever known. And I destroyed her because I couldn't handle my own weakness. Amara felt tears burning behind her useless eyes, but she refused to let them fall. This wasn't reconciliation. This was too little, too late. Your Honor, Chitty continued, I'll accept whatever division of assets the court determines. I won't fight anymore. Amara deserves better than what I gave her. She always did. Judge Dlamini was quiet for a long moment. Then, well, this is unexpected. Mr. Okonkwo, are you saying you're withdrawing your contest to the divorce? Yes, Your Honor. Let her have whatever she wants. I just want this to be over. Mrs. Okonkwo, Judge Dlamini asked, how do you wish to proceed? Amara stood very still, processing. Part of her wanted to push, to take everything, to make him suffer the way he'd made her suffer. But another part, the part that had told the truth about her father, the part that had chosen freedom over revenge, knew that holding on to anger would only poison her future. I want a fair division, Your Honor, she said finally. Not everything. Not nothing. Just what's fair. And I want this marriage legally ended so we can both move on. Very well, Judge Dlamini said. I'm ordering a full forensic accounting of all marital assets. Once complete, I'll make a determination on division. In the meantime, I'm granting the divorce on grounds of irretrievable breakdown. Mrs. Okonkwo, you're free to resume your maiden name if you choose. I'll keep Okonkwo, Your Honor, Amara said, surprising herself. It's who I've been for 3 years. I'm not erasing that. I'm just moving forward from it. As you wish. We're adjourned. The gavel fell. Outside the courtroom, Amara was immediately surrounded by journalists shouting questions, cameras flashing uselessly for a woman who couldn't see them. Kola's security team formed a protective barrier, guiding her toward the waiting car. But before they could leave, someone called out, Mrs. Okonkwo. Please. Amara turned. Who is that? It's me, Chioma's voice, breathless from running. I wanted you to know. I'm leaving Johannesburg. Going back to my family in Enugu. The baby and we don't need him. We'll be fine on our own. Amara reached out, found Chioma's hand. You will be. You're stronger than you think. So are you, Chioma said softly. Thank you for showing me that. As they drove away from the courthouse, Zainab pulled up the news on her phone. Amara, you need to hear this. It's everywhere. Judge praises blind woman's courage in landmark divorce case. Okonkwo admits wrongdoing in emotional court confession. And this one, from victim to victor, Amara Okonkwo's journey inspires thousands. What about the negative ones? Amara asked. I know there have to be negative ones. There are, Zainab admitted. But less than before. The Okafor Foundation announcement helped. People respect that you're trying to make amends. Amara leaned back against the seat, exhausted. It wasn't over. The criminal investigation into Uncle Obiora would take months, possibly implicating others in her family. The forensic accounting of Chitty's business would take weeks. And her own role in the 2022 cover-up was still being examined by prosecutors, though Thandai believed she'd face no charges given her circumstances at the time. But the marriage was over. She was free. Mrs. Okonkwo, Kola's voice came from beside her. When had he gotten into the car? How are you feeling? Tired, she admitted. Relieved. Scared about what comes next. What comes next is up to you, Kola said. You have options now. Choices. Freedom. Is that your way of saying your job here is done? Amara asked, trying to keep her voice light but failing. Kola was quiet for a moment. Then, that depends. Do you want it to be done? Amara's breath caught. Over the past 3 weeks, Kola had been constant, supportive but never pushy, present but never overbearing. He'd respected her boundaries, had never tried to turn their professional relationship into something romantic despite what the tabloids claimed. He'd simply been there. I don't know, Amara said honestly. I don't know who I am outside of being Chitty's wife, or a victim, or someone fighting for justice. I need time to figure that out. To be just Amara. Then take that time, Kola said gently. I'm not going anywhere. When you're ready, if you're ready, I'll be here. As a friend, at minimum. And if it becomes something more. He paused. Well, we'll figure that out together. No pressure. No expectations. Just possibility. Amara smiled despite her exhaustion. Possibility. I like that. Her phone buzzed. A message from Adiz Okafor. The foundation paperwork is complete. We launch next month. The Okafor family will be remembered. Thank you for giving them back their names. And another message, this one from an unknown number. Mrs. Okonkwo, this is Namvula Radebe. I'm 62 years old. My husband left me last year after I was diagnosed with early-onset Parkinson's. He said I was too much work. Reading about your case gave me the courage to hire a lawyer. Today, I won my settlement. Thank you for showing us that we don't have to accept being discarded. You changed my life. Tears spilled down Amara's cheeks, not tears of sadness, but of something else. Purpose. Impact. Hope. Zainab, she said softly. Read me the comments on that news article. The positive ones. Her sister scrolled, then began reading in a thick voice. My mother is blind. Seeing Mrs. Okonkwo fight back made me realize I need to treat her as capable, not fragile. I left my abusive husband last week because of this story. Thank you, Amara. Disability doesn't mean disposable. Everyone should learn that. More tears, but Amara was smiling now. This was what she'd fought for. Not revenge, not money, not even justice in the legal sense. But the chance to show others that they didn't have to accept being diminished, being called burdens, being treated as less than human. "Where to, Mrs. Okonkwo?" Kola's driver asked. Amara thought about the apartment, her apartment now, waiting for her. Thought about the settlement money that would eventually come, the foundation work with Adiz, the speaking opportunities that had started pouring in from disability rights organizations and women's groups. Thought about the future she was building, brick by brick, choice by choice. "Home," she said finally. "Take me home." But this time, home wasn't a place Chitty had chosen, or a life someone else had built for her. Home was wherever she decided it would be. Home was the woman she was becoming. Scarred, honest, strong, and finally, completely free. 3 months later, Amara stood in a community center in Soweto, her hand resting on Adiz's arm as they cut the ribbon for the first Okafor Family Road Safety Initiative, a program providing free driving lessons, addiction counseling, and support for accident survivors. "My niece loved to dance," Adiz said into the microphone, her voice carrying across the crowd. "My nephew wanted to be a pilot. Their parents were good people who died because of one man's terrible choice. But today, their names live on. Not as victims, not as statistics, but as inspiration. As change." The crowd applauded. Amara felt Kola's hand find hers, squeeze gently. Over the past months, they'd grown closer, slowly, carefully, with none of the desperation of her marriage but all the steadiness of real partnership. "You did this," he whispered. "You turned tragedy into purpose." "We did this," Amara corrected. "I couldn't have done any of it alone." But she knew, in her heart, that wasn't entirely true. She could have. She would have. Because the woman who'd been abandoned in a shopping mall no longer existed. In her place stood Amara Okonkwo, survivor, advocate, and living proof that blind didn't mean helpless, that damage didn't mean worthless, that being discarded didn't mean you were disposable. She'd been dumped by her husband like trash. But she'd risen like a queen. And her story, their story, was just beginning. What an incredible journey! From abandonment to empowerment, Amara showed us all what real strength looks like. What was your favorite moment from this story? Comment below. And if this story moved you, inspired you, or made you think differently about courage and justice, please hit that like button, subscribe to Echoes of Africa for more powerful stories, and share this with every woman who needs to hear that she's never too broken to fight back. What story should we tell next? Let us know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, you are never a burden. You are always worthy. Until next time, keep fighting, keep rising, and keep echoing your truth.